It's just before 9 o'clock. It's Wednesday? Yeah, Wednesday, the 4th of December, and full council's just finished. Oh, it was fractious. Oh, what a shit show, to be honest. So what happened? Well, basically, it was a very procedural meeting. There wasn't a great deal to discuss. It was accepting of minutes, but there were two motions brought. Well, actually, no, that's a lie. There were two questions brought to start with, one of which was brought by some local farmers relating to the recent changes in inheritance tax. Gentleman stood up, spoke very, very well, and got a very positive response in return for the leader of the council, detailing as well that there was a motion later on in the debate. There was also a question put forward by someone in relating to the consultation on remote council meetings and the ability for people to go and attend and vote remotely. And again, speaking as someone who is able-bodied, I make noises as I get up and down out of chairs now, but that's just my age. But he made some very, very good points in terms of access for disabled people, and also from different demographics, and I can say that as a single parent myself. Sometimes the difficulty that creates, and if you do want a wider, more representative democracy, then maybe that's something that needs to be considered. The response was not necessarily that positive. It was respectful. Cheers, guys. But not necessarily that respectful. Those two are the farmers. But it didn't lead. The response to the consultation was discussed by executive board isn't something that met his particular feelings or desires, and not necessarily one that shares my viewpoint. So I'm going to see if I can feed back into that consultation myself, because I think we need to have. It's difficult. It really is. Being a councillor takes up a lot of time if you're going to do the job properly. And the age demographic within the chamber is relatively old. And with people coming in from different backgrounds as well, they're going to be younger. It just doesn't necessarily fit. So things that could do to make that easier, I think, need to be considered. Needs to be a lot of work. It's not just them, but yeah, considered rather than dismissed at hand, I think, is something that needs to be listed. Anyway. The next aspect, though, came the two motions, and the one motion was in relation to the impacts on farmers of the inheritance tax. And we are a rural borough, and the impacts were there. And like I said, is that and it noted. But again, the resolutions themselves couldn't be argued in my mind, because it was. We resolved to write to the Secretary of State and say that, detail that the impacts on farmers are there, and also that the lead of the council and other representatives, will liaise with farmers and representatives to see what the council can do for them. And that's what councils should be doing. It's representing the people that they represent. So that in itself is not an issue, but it was just everything that went before it. And I quoted words popularised by Fun Boy 3 with Bananarama. It's not what you do, it's the way that you do it. And what preceded the motion were a whole list of statements that was just party politicking, some of which were changing the name of any preferred changes, trying to give it a nominative of the family farm tax or whatever. And some of the things, this council believes, and some of those things that were in there, I didn't believe. Some of them were things that should be noted rather than believed. There were spelling mistakes in there. There were certain problems with syntax. The phraseology was not consistent. It was pretty poorly written in terms of that, in terms of being something that you could actually write towards. So I said that if they wanted to amend the motion, I'd be able to vote in favour of it. You didn't have to change the resolution, just the bits at the front. And that didn't happen. It wasn't my motion to change. If they want to go and do that, let them. I didn't move that we should move straight to the vote, similarly. But it was difficult. Then there was a second motion. And this is where it all went a bit weird. Because the second motion was in relation to a question that Rachel Taylor had asked in Parliament, where she quoted that fly tipping within North Warwickshire, there'd only been one conviction, and did the Secretary of State how did they feel about that dismal statistic? And again, the motion itself wasn't that political in terms of party politics, because it wasn't around policy or whatever, it was around clarity of the information. But all of a sudden it started going really wrong, and it was really difficult. Now I don't know if it was in this part or the other part, but I was sat almost in the middle of the Conservatives tonight. It was really, really quite strange. I think it was to enable other councillors to have more accessible seating and support around that, but that was difficulty. That was difficult, but it also meant that I was very close, and I had to stand at one point and request, because there was some verbiage coming, and I stood and I requested of the chair or the mayor what I thought was a way to try and de-escalate the situation, but I couldn't hear what people were saying. But made reference to chuntering from a sedentary position, which had to be repeated, and I was told tough when he said when I was asked what should be done about it. It was most unseemly. In actual fact, afterwards I took the member to task and I said, please don't talk to me like that, because people shouldn't just say tough and I'm not going to listen to the chair and make it difficult for you to do your job, and he said, no, and you the same to me. And well, I'd done nothing to him apart from asking him to be quiet and respectful. And I said, well, I'm quite happy to discuss that outside. Now, I think that might be misconstrued. And if it has, and he's like going on, asking a 71-year-old to go outside. Anyway, unseemly. Didn't need to happen. If I played my part in that, then I wholeheartedly apologise. But the behaviours in the chamber were pretty poor. And I did play my part, I'd like to think then, in trying to find some kind of consensus within the chamber. And amendments were made to the motion that enabled things to be passed, and also proposed an amendment in relation to fly tipping, that actions didn't just go on those actions who had to clean it up, but also on those that to prevent it elsewhere. Because I think that we suffer from our geography, and I don't think that all the litter that you see in streets and country lanes or whatever is all generated in North Warwickshire, far from it. But the difficulties where other councils might raise their costs in terms of bulky collections leads to an increase in fly tipping, but not within their borough, but in relation to ours, I think is something that needs to be considered. So I asked for that to be included in the letter. Afterwards, though, the meeting felt like it went on for a very, very, very long time. It was difficult, but hopefully this is rock bottom, because now maybe we'll be able to step forward and move forward from there. Because if we don't, then accessibility, making these proceedings, building confidence in us as a body. I've said before, I think actions like that demean us all, and actions like that demean us all. I had a good conversation afterwards with Councillor Mark Simpson, who sometimes, we don't see eye to eye politically, but I really admire his scrutineering eye on information. And also, he tonight did make some really, really good points that were conciliatory. And again, I think that, there is a feeling across the chamber that actually this doesn't do us any good. So I'm going to look probably to bring a motion. And again, I'm saying it here because I've got no reason to hide it. Looking at the role of councillor, which is listed and is enshrined, looking at the behaviours that we've seen, and to try and see that we get back to working not to minimum standards but to best practice, because actually I think there's a lot more that unites people than divides people, and this whole battering aspect it's not right. Anyway, I hope you're well. This is probably going to be my last update before Christmas, which is really, really strange because I still think it's July, although it's dark and cold and wet. But take care. Thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you all soon. Bye bye.